the channel. Today we are diving deep into Season 3, Episode 5, Tel'aran'rhiod. And yeah, I'm going to be going through it, well, not necessarily every scene, but I'm going to be going through it almost scene by scene, just telling you my thoughts and feelings that I had, sometimes related to the book, sometimes just thoughts about the episode, but we're going to be breaking it down in a lot of detail. And I do have to say, just going to this, I am a book nerd. Like, I've got these Wheel of Time posters behind me. I'm obsessed with these books. I've read them many, many times. But I really appreciate the adaptation. And I find, like, when I'm watching it, when the show zigs instead of zags, my thought isn't to go, they ruined it, it's different. My thought is to go, it's different. Why? What is the, like, writer's end game here? They know where their story is going, just like those of us who've read the books do. So these changes, they're like clues. Like, it's a whole new puzzle to solve alongside the original puzzle, like the whatever. And I don't know, I kind of like it. It's like reading the books again for the first time, but with more clues. So yeah, a heads up, just so you know, this video is going to contain spoilers for events from, like, book 4, which this season is based on, and much, much, much later books of the series. So proceed with caution if you don't want things spoiled for you. But if you're okay with that, let's get going.
Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy. Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy.
So before we actually start diving into this episode, I want to address the elephant, the shreddit in the room. This episode had a Herculean task. It had to follow episode 4, aka the best episode of television I've seen in a hot minute. And look, episode 5 gives us Tel'aran'rhiod, like a god-tier sangreal being used here, after Moraine commits grand theft Terangreal or Sangreal. I think it's a Sangreal. Yeah, but after last week's mind-blowing episode, this one felt a little bit pedestrian. There are parts of this episode that I loved. Actually, probably most of it I loved, but it kind of felt like eating oatmeal after a 3-course meal. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was still filling. It was still satisfying, but I just feel like I have to address that. Last week's episode was like, whoo. This week's episode was like, oh, like there was a lot of that. So, okay, that out of the way, let's start. So, Moraine's out here playing Finders Keepers with Latra Sangreal here, or the Sakarnin, and I don't think she's told the Wise Ones that she's got it. Now, book fans, we know that the Wise Ones do go through the columns in Ruidian. Okay, they could have changed this for the show, but in the books, when you become an apprentice, you go through the rings, and then when you graduate from an apprentice to the Wise One, you go through the columns. So they will have seen both of them. But I don't know if they will have seen what Latra did with this Sangreal, because she hid it in the tree, and I don't think she hid it in the tree. I don't know. I don't know if they know that it's there, and if they definitely don't know that Moraine's got it here. This is very Blue Ajah behavior. She really said, trust is a liability, and stuck to it. She is channeling a lot of the one power here. Like, these weaves are massive, but this isn't just about power. The rings have told Moraine that she's doomed. So as she, I believe, said, I think she said this in an interview, this is her raging against the dying of the light, channeling enough Sidar to make the world sharp again. Like, in the books, wielding this much of the one power is euphoric. That's the word that Lan uses. Every sense heightens, every color brightens. You feel alive. And for Moraine, staring down her own death, that's a drug. She is desperate to mainline. Here's my one nitpick. Moraine's weaves here are like, look at this. Her weaves are epic. She is literally reshaping the way. She is doing some terraforming here. But no one reacts. Like, even though later this very episode, we confirm that women can see each other channeling, no one reacts to this. She is not, like, Lan shows up here in, like, a couple of seconds. She's not, like, that does look isolated, I do grant, but those weaves are huge. Those weaves are huge. I can't imagine that she is far enough away from Bear and Egwene, the two channelers that we know about, to not have seen this, and yet nobody brings this up. Nobody brings this up. Come on. Those weaves are huge. This is actually the show's first time showing us danger for female channelers outside of linking. Like in season 1, we saw it with obviously episode 8, but we also saw it with Liandrin when they were linking to still Logain. But this is true in the books. Channeling too much will burn you out. Moraine here looks like she's about to spontaneously combust, literally, and it's kind of terrifying. In the books, stronger channelers like Rand and Nynaeve can handle more power, and so they can handle these sangreal better. But even they risk frying their souls a bit if they push too much. Most sangreal in the books have buffers. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Calendor is one that does not, which, okay, I am liking the idea of mirroring these two sangreal. So if Calendor does not, it does not appear that the Sicarnan has a buffer, because she was about to burn herself out, so I could see them being mirrored in that way. Although I have no idea if that will come up in the show, because, simplifying the magic system is probably good for the show. Here's a question, though. If Lan hadn't shown up, would Moraine have burned up? Last episode, Moraine said that Moraine would have died without Lan. So is this how it could have happened? Like a glorious, reckless crescendo of power before she flickers out? I don't know. But okay, I want to talk about the real MVP of this scene, the warder bond. So Rand. No, this is not the rings. Lan comes running here because he knows something's happening. And then he asks her, what is it? What are you doing? What do you feel? And she says, what does it feel like to you? And she's channeling enough power to terraform the waste. And yeah, we know something horrific is coming for Moraine, whether it's her death or just extreme suffering. I'm sure, we saw the rings, you saw that murder sequence there, and Lan is going to feel every second of it. I think this is a scene not just to show what she is experiencing, but to remind us that he experiences it too. This is groundwork that has been laid before, but this is, I think, one of the few times we've heard a specific discussion of the fact that they feel what each other feels. This made me so happy. This made me so happy because for me, I'm going to say something that feels going to sound blasphemous, but it fits something from the books that drives me crazy. In the books, the wise ones basically tell Avi here that she has to go be the pretty girl that's around, the pretty Aiel that's around Rand, because what man wouldn't want a pretty woman who listens to him? And then maybe he'll spill his secrets and he'll get some feelings for us. Wink, wink. It's gross. And yes, they definitely say we're not making you sleep with him, but they then make her sleep in his tent, and it's gross and it's boundary violating. It's okay. I'm gonna use a metaphor here because I know that people will say this in the comments. They've said this to me before when I've talked about how much I hate this, because they'll be like, but no, the Aiel, the wise ones knew that she liked him. I don't care. I don't give a fuck if they knew that she liked him or not. Because that's what happens in the books. If you're watching, I gave a spoiler warning, but I know people who don't read the books watch these anyway. In the books, they do end up together, and yeah, she's attracted to him, but she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to be, and it's like if there's a plate of delicious cookies, and I know that I have a good meal that I want to eat, but those cookies smell so good, so I say to you, oh, I'm not going to eat those cookies. I don't want to eat those cookies. And you know that those cookies smell good, and you know that I like those cookies. It would be really shitty of you to then pick up a cookie and shove it in my mouth when I've told you I don't want it. Even though you know that I like the cookies, I am choosing to not want the cookies right now. And she didn't. Anyway, that's my whole thing. I don't understand why people, for some things, will understand that we must respect other people's boundaries, consent, basically. And then for other things, they're like, but no, I know better than you what you want, so I'm just going to push past what you've told me. It drives me crazy. I don't get it. It's gross. Anyway, here, it's different. It's different. It's a challenge. Melane's smirk here, it says it all. It says, oh, you think you can't teach him? All right. Prove yourself. Here, it seems like it's about Avienda's growth. It's not coercion. It's not forcing her on him. It's a challenge. And I like this. It gives this. We're going to get the same thing. We're going to get her instructing him, but it's not going to be the Aiel wise ones basically pimping her out. Cold Rocks. It was really cool to see Cold Rocks, but then something happens here. I haven't seen anybody talk about that. Look at that. Rand has a veil on when coming in. Now, it's not a black veil, and like black veils are what the Aiel use when they're killing, but especially having just gone through the columns and knowing the significance of wearing a veil, why was he wearing a veil? Like, that had to have been a choice. I don't know, like, was it his choice? Was it the director's choice? And I know, Dusty, it's a dust veil, blah, 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 but nobody else is wearing one. Nobody else, just him. Why? This, to me, it's an upgrade. The Aiel polygamy is upgraded to polyamory, and I'm here for it. I know some book purists might squirm, but the whole sister-wife thing feels a bit dated. I know that there are some fans who read this into the books, and, you know, valid. I never did, because I don't feel like... I mean, let's be real. Robert Jordan wrote a warrior culture. He was not writing the ethical slut here, so... And we're going to talk about this little girl in a minute. I liked this scene here, where we just had them going off in different directions. You had Rand chasing his destiny. He's chasing a child, and it's really sweet seeing Rand be so warm with this child. I like seeing, you know, as a book fan, I know where Rand's story is going, but just seeing him like this, being so natural with this child was heartwarming. And then, you know, you see Egwene going off with the wise ones, and Moraine going off with Ruark and his wives, and it was just like, oh, they came here together, but now they're going off on different paths. Their paths are diverging, and it was just visually represented in this shot. Now I want to talk about that little girl that Rand is chasing here. Okay. I don't have a repeating shot of her, but she's adorable. She's got lines. She's clearly related to Bear and Ruark, which means that the show is making sure that we care about that child, and that has me terrified. Book readers, you know where I'm going. In The Shadow Rising, there is a scene so brutal that it just sort of lives in our heads rent-free. After the Trollocs attack the Stone of Tyr, Rand finds a dead child in the rubble, and in his grief, using Kalendor, he tries to bring her back to life. But the one power can't undo death, and so what happens next, it's grotesque. Her body moves, but it's empty. It's a puppet, and he's puppeting her like a zombie marionette, and it's grotesque. But that child in the books, that child is a stranger. Here, this girl is a girl we've met, a girl who calls Rand the Karakarn with a grin, and who's related to Bear and Ruark. And if the show adapts that scene, and I think they might, it won't be just Rand failing to cheat death. It'll be Rand failing her, failing Bear and failing Ruark, failing a child that he played with, a face that he and us know. It also gets interesting because earlier this scene we have Moraine warning Rand that he's going to have to channel, and he's resisting because he's terrified of how much he craves it and what the taint will do to him. In the books, I believe it's Lanfear who pushes him in that fight in the stone to finally embrace the power, but it's too late to save that girl. Is the show going to do that here, or is it going to like twist it a little bit? Imagine Rand realizing as he cradles this child's body that if he'd listened to Moraine sooner, maybe he could have stopped it. Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, has teased that episode 8 is going to be controversial, and I now think it might be this moment, and if it is, it's going to break us. It will. But I do think it's Rand's descent into, where he ends up, Darth Rand, as we call him in the fandom. His darkness needs weight. It needs not just dead villains, but it needs those moments of failure. And this would be devastating. Because Rand's horror, it doesn't just have to be about power and whatnot. It has to be about, love, but also guilt and the unbearable truth that no matter how strong you are, some things can't be healed. And what if that is where Rand begins his list of names? So, what's in this letter that Siuan's out here sniffing like it's a Moraine-scented candle? Given their 20-year romance, it's got to be from Moraine, right? Like, why else would she be sniffing it with hard eyes? But later on, Siuan doesn't even know where Moraine is. Like, she asks her when they're in their dream scene. So I'm wondering if it's like an old love letter, like a miss you babe from pre-exile, or I don't know, did Moraine send a, hey, stole the Tel'aran'rhiod, be right back postcard? I don't think so. But then the roses hit. In book fans, we know, like, Elaida's obsession with roses. And in the show, it seems to be her villain scent. And Siuan's face is priceless. She goes from, like, oh, my beloved, to, oh, hell no, in 0.2 seconds. And props, I gotta give props to the sound design, because she puts this in the box, and once again, the camera pans away, but we hear the magic as it locks the box. And it's the second time that the show has tricked me with sound. Also, just gonna point this out, Elaida is getting roasted this season. First, what episode was it? What Sutama calls her jewelry gaudy, and now Siuan's like, your perfume smells like a funeral home. And sure, she could have said, like, the roses herald your arrival, but no, she says it this way. It's just, wow, she's getting dragged. But okay, just like Elaida is getting dragged here, she is dragging Siuan's lack of style. And honestly, she's kind of not wrong. Now, I like the way her study here looks, but in the books, Siuan's bare bones study screams of, like, noble austerity, but Elaida kind of nails it here. You assume your sense of style doesn't matter, but it does. This might be a shift from the books. Robert Jordan often tied opulence with moral decay. Like, we see it with Elaida, we see it with Savannah, but the show is hinting that Siuan's disregard for optics could be at least part of her downfall. Elaida's, like, playing the popular song from Wicked. Like, it's not about brains. Like, did they have brains or knowledge? Don't make me laugh. They were popular. It's about perception. And Siuan, I think she's about to learn this the hard way. Like, in some ways, I feel like this is setting up Siuan's hubris. Her, in her mind, like, this is a simple study. Again, like I said, noble austerity, but it might also be a sign of tone-deaf leadership. Elaida's not wrong. The tower is losing influence, and Siuan's commoner vibes might be ruffling feathers, but Elaida's solution is not gonna work. Like, Elaida's solution, just wear more gems, be more flashy. Like, I mean, that's not gonna be her only solution, but she's not entirely wrong here. Okay, I paid a lot of attention to what Siuan says here, because of course we got the Aes Sedai, oh, speak no word that is not true. So she says, Elaine is on a journey of my choosing. Fair enough, that works. She did send them on a black Ajah hunt. They are on a black Ajah hunt that this one fits. I don't think there's any stretching on that one. But she says, well protected. What? That is a bold claim, Siuan. Nynaeve, blocked. Matt, he's chaotic. He's good with a quarterstaff. We know that. But I don't know if I would count that as being, like, them being well protected. The only other thing I could think, and I have other things that might suggest to this later on, but she sent Min along as well. Okay, but that's Matt and Min. I don't know. I still don't know if that counts as well protected. It feels stretching things a little bit. Like, Birgitta, is she sending Birgitta? No, but that's I don't know. Elaida is racing to Demise Wells like it's a Black Friday sale on roses or gaudy perfume or whatever. I don't know. In the books, that takes 2 more books, but here Elaida's just like, yeah, let's skip to the war crimes. Now, she's not mentioning a box here, but I mean, that's, yeah, we are racing. I think if we get next season, I hope we get next season. I think next season will be the Demise Wells. And she's got some evasion tactics here. Like, in this conversation, it happens a couple of times where Siuan says something that should evoke a response from Elaida, but instead of responding, she just asks a question. And here, it's about Moraine. It's It's classic. But what gets indicated here is something that is true in the books. Although I don't think, it's not even, I don't think I know. Elaida doesn't say this to Siuan. This interaction doesn't happen in the books. But that Elaida remembers that Siuan and Moraine were friends as novices. I don't know if she remembers that they were pillow friends. Because that is true in the books, that they were a couple in New Spring, and then they just grew apart. Anyway, I've ranted about that before. But she does remember their friendship and does remember that they stopped talking to each other the second they were made full sisters. And she thinks to herself she's the only person who remembers it. So her brain, like, they're being very direct. They're kind of laying their cards out on the table in this conversation. Like, this is my plan. Well, this is my plan. All right, let's see whose plan wins. Y'all, this scene kind of wrecked me. Varen's tenderness with Adelius, or no, they say Adelius in the show, right? Anyway, it's her sister. It's her sister after the Black Ajah attack. Oh, but also, I just gotta tell you, I have a master's in speech language pathology, so my brain went on full diagnostic mode. When I was rewatching, I had to go back and rewatch this scene to actually see if I had missed content from the scene, because my brain was like, all, okay, what is it? Is it anomic aphasia? It's possible. She's struggling with word retrieval, but she's still like maintaining comprehension. That's classic anterior temporal lobe involvement. It's not Wernicke's aphasia. That's completely ruled out. There's no fluent but nonsense speech. It could be mild Broca's. If you notice, there's like an effortful telegraphic output kind of when she speaks. And now I'm kind of doubly devastated because Varen, bless her, is using classic supported conversation techniques here. She's reducing the linguistic load, and she's providing semantic cues. So, I appreciate the realism, but now I'm sad. The show tricked me. Now, it might have been because of what happened in that previous scene, where my brain was just like trying to diagnose Adelius here. But, okay, we've got Adelius eavesdropping, and I thought, oh no, she's gonna spill the beans to Elaida, but no. She's in on the trap. Clever show. Very, very clever. And okay. Book readers, no. We revel in this moment. Varen casually discussing the Black Ajah like it's a book club topic. The irony is, chef's kiss. I thought I'd miss her in the Two Rivers, but having her here in the White Tower, it's perfection. Just, people who haven't read the books, buckle up. Varen's arc is, it's everything. It's everything. Siuan. Oh, there's one more Aes Sedai, at least. Oh, my sweet summer child. If only you knew. So this conversation, I mean, not word for word, but this does happen in the books, but with a critical upgrade. Again, we have upgraded polygamy, which in the books is, like, especially with the Aiel, is framed as women gracefully sharing a man. But in the show, it is polyamory. It's mutual, it's playful, and way, way less sexist. But that aside, that is book accurate. The tone, though, to me, feels different. In the books, during this, like, dinner, I feel like Aviendha is seething, whereas here, I feel like she's playfully sort of mocking Rand's Wetlander hang-ups. So, yeah, that previous conversation, it does happen. Obviously, again, not about polyamory, but about polygamy and, not fighting over a man. I don't remember where, though, and I don't know if it happens at this dinner. But this line, except for those of us who must instruct, it happens at a dinner much like this. And in the books, she is seething and, like, kind of ruining his meal. Whereas here, the vibe I'm getting is like, okay, fine, I'll teach you, but I'm going to roast you the whole time. It's more playful. I'm enjoying this. Moraine's wistful look here. I feel like she's kind of planning Lan's future. Like, book fans, we know, Lan's original life goal was to die dramatically in the Blight. But, okay, now, in the books, this is just from the books, but the women in his life save him. Moraine, when she meets him, is like, okay, how about you don't fight the concept of evil in the Blight and, actually do something useful with your life. And then later, Nynaeve, in her typical bluntness, is all just, I forbid you to yeet yourself into darkness. I mean, she actually doesn't do it quite that directly, but it's basically that. Lan's whole arc is about learning to live. And Moraine here, I feel like she's already setting him up. Like, you know, later on she gets up to leave and he goes to follow her and she's like, no, stay with Melindra. That to me felt like her being, please, I want you to find happiness after I'm gone. And, you know, Melindra being Valkyrie, I feel like that's a brilliant show addition. Now, you know, she knows that he's in love with Nynaeve. Obviously, they can feel each other's emotions. I don't think she's seeing love here. I don't think she's setting him up for a romantic relationship, but she's seeing, like, he's met a Valkyrie and they're having an interaction. Is she seeing hope for him here? This is more hope, and she's wanting him to have that when she's gone. Just gonna add, though, of course, as a book fan, I don't think they'll change this. I know who Melindra is, and I like it, but also, no, go away. Classic Egwene. You must not go. And she's like, yeah, absolutely, I won't. Until I do. Because she's just, Egwene gets rules. So Egwene will break the rules. Like, she will, I'm using that wrong. I'm just saying that wrong. It's not that she will break, well, no, because she definitely breaks this rule. But it's just that she wants to do everything. She wants to go as fast as she possibly can and as far as she possibly can in everything that she tries. Like, she is one of those people who puts 100% into everything, and to try and limit her, I don't think she wears it well. Like, I don't think it's comfortable for her. I will notice or point out something that I noticed on my rewatch. She's now in apprentice clothes. So you see that scene where they break apart. She is not wearing apprentice clothes. She's got that black leather shirt on. And then here, this is the next scene we see her in. She is changed into apprentice clothes. So she's now wearing what Aviendha does. And again, yeah, that is Egwene. 100% committed to this new thing that she is trying. Putting this brass pin in the candle, it reminded me of Inception. I don't remember exactly what it is that they do in Inception, but there's like a cue to make you jump from one level of dream to the other. That's what that reminded me of, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was what inspired this here. But I also like it because it makes a very distinctive sound, and I am one who, I've said this before, I get more from auditory things than not, and this show has tricked me twice, at least, probably more, but at least twice this season with sound. But I can see that sound that it makes when it falls being a cue for us to know when people are coming out of the dream. Like, it could be just a repeated motif that they use. And welcome to Tel'aran'rhiod, where the rules are made up and modesty is optional, unless you're a dude. Sorry, this is nothing to do with the show. But in the books, the women, the females who are in the world of dreams are constantly, like, they'll have a stray thought about a guy that they like, and it's like, whoops, my boobs fell out. Like, look, whoops. Whereas we have two men in the story who go to the dream world a lot. We got Rand and we've got Perrin. And never once do they have a stray thought about a woman they like, and they say, whoops, my dick. Like, never. It never, ever happens. But somehow the women are always just one stray thought away from a wardrobe malfunction. But anyway, instead, in the show, we get this amazing armor dress hybrid. And yes, we saw this before. This is what she wore when she was the Amelin City. I think that was from her, when she was in the Arches. But this is the Tel'aran'rhiod fashion we deserve. I love the way that the show is distinguishing between people who just touch the dream and people who are actually in Tel'aran'rhiod. We got those people here, like that ghostly figure that's sort of flickering in and out. It's a perfect way to show, like, accidental dreamers brushing against the world of dreams. But then Lanfear shows up. She's solid. She's present. And I don't remember my initial reaction, but the feeling I had was like, literally like, gasp. It's excellent visual language. You immediately know there's a predator in her domain. Lanfear hates Egwene. She is obsessed with making Egwene relive her trauma. But I think, I said this before, but I think it is double-edged. She's, of course, tormenting Egwene with memories of being choked by Rhenna and being collared. But I think she's also forcing her to feel what she did to Rhenna. Like, I said this, I think, in my last breakdown, but Ishi's whole motivation last season was pushing people towards darkness, and Egwene kind of bit. Like, that moment in Foam, it was dark. He wanted Egwene to do something dark, and Lanfear here is just underlining what she did in blood. I'm actually confused by what happens here. I mean, I'm not. I know that she pulls herself away from Tel'aran'rhiod and wakes up, but I don't understand why Bear is confused, because that's the pin. The pin fell. Bear said, you will wake up when the pin falls, and the pin falls, and she wakes up. Now, obviously, we see what happens in the dream. We see this determined look on her face, and then she pulls herself out of the dream. But I don't, are we to somehow infer that she came out of the dream, and then while she was doing it, she made the pin fall? I don't know. I'm a little bit confused. We got the sound, though, so I do think that is definitely going to be a cue for us. But, yeah. And then somewhere in this scene, Moraine says she takes too much too fast. And, yes, that's the understatement of the age. Have you met Egwene? This is peak Egwene. Yes. Elaida is making moves. And, of course, she targets the white Ajah, appealing to the logic. While, of course, Varen here is playing 4D chess. This is straight from the books. Although I can't remember who approaches who first. Does Elaida approach Varen, or does Varen approach Elaida? I don't know. But I need more Varen. I saw a theory, I believe, from Chansonnet in the chat of the Dusty Wheel. I was on the Dusty Wheel this morning, saying that her suspicion is that Varen is, book spoilers, Zarog, which would be fascinating. Yes, if it is, that's great. I don't know. I need more of this dynamic. Varen's ice cold calculation versus Elaida's I'm the main character energy. It's chef kiss. I need tense whispered meetings where Varen's like, yes, dear, you're totally in charge, while sharpening a knife behind her back. Elaida's rose-scented villainy strikes again. We've got Adelius sniffing the air. It's a clever cue from Varen. Remember, this woman smells like a funeral home's gift shop. And then we've got Elaida's cruelty to this accepted. Again, peak I'm the main character energy. Anyone below Aes Sedai is beneath her. Literally, that's how she thinks. I've got a nitpick here. Swan's crew, they wouldn't trust an accepted with their Black Ajah trap here? Or whatever they were trying to do, the Elaida trap, I guess. In my headcanon, this scene would have more steps. The accepted comes in and says, I'm sorry, I got sent away from your sister. And then the accepted gets dismissed. And then the Aes Sedai celebrate Elaida basically taking the bait. But I think the show had to streamline it. I guess I get why, but I don't know. Book Swan would be side-eyeing this, we're involving random accepted now? Once again, paying very close attention to what people say sometimes just makes it so much more interesting. The words that she says here. I don't know where Varen keeps sneaking off to her. I'm trying to find her. This is all very, very true. The she needs me line really struck me, because no, obviously Varen does not need Elaida, but Elaida genuinely believes that Varen needs her, because Elaida genuinely believes that everyone needs her. That's her tragic flaw. It is ego. It is ego. And it's just props to Shora here. She's delivering the I'm the hero of this story energy, with zero self-awareness. So, the Nynaeve not wanting to go on a boat thing that I thought was going to be an Easter egg, because in the book she gets seasick. Not an Easter egg. This is book canon comedy gold. I mean, I know it's slapstick. It's funny. Our mighty wisdom brought down by the waves. It's funny, but I feel her, because nausea. It's torture. It's torture. Nausea without cause is torture, without an end to it. I get BPPV occasionally, benign proximal positional vertigo, and it sucks. It sucks more than anything. So yes, it's funny, but also someone get this woman some ginger tea. Stat. So I think what we are supposed to glean here is that they are going to track Liandrin through her son, I think. Show only fans who shouldn't be watching this video, but I know some of you are. Buckle up, Liandrin's kid, new. He's not in the books. It's brilliant, though, for giving her depth, because book Liandrin she's a cardboard villain, but here in the show, she is grieving, she is ruthless and personal. I do have a question, though. If I'm right about this, I don't know if Nynaeve knows her son's name. I don't think Liandrin trauma dumped on her during their mentorship. Here's my dead son's birth child. I don't think that happened. So, yeah. I will say, again, for only fans, if you whatever, we know Nynaeve in the books does punch Liandrin in the face, and it's great. We win. I thought this was hilarious. I loved, like, her gallows hero. Like, is that an option? This is, again, a woman who literally wrestled a Trolloc, brought low in this moment. It just cracked me up. And Matt's, we're banned from the deck so you don't eat yourself. It's pure sibling energy. And of course, then we also have Elaine dropping seafolk bargains aren't meant to be broken. Of course, she's the one who knows seafolk etiquette. She's a future queen. She studies this stuff. And so she would have this sort of expertise. Of course, like, we do occasionally find moments where her expertise is flawed, but this is book accurate. I do want to say something else about this scene. I feel like adding Matt to this dynamic changes something from the books in a way that I feel is very positive. In the books, Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene are on the Black Ajah hunt together, and they're endless sniping because it becomes it just goes on and on. It sometimes it started to feel like there was a trope that we were trotting on. It was catty woman comedy, and that's what it was. And it definitely resulted in a lot of people, like my first foray into the Wheel of Time fandom was finding out how many people hated the women, and a lot of them would talk about this journey. I mean, it's not this exact journey, but they would talk about this as where it begins because they just constantly sniping with each other. But here, it's just people. It's not women. It's people stuck in a tiny room with a seasick wisdom for 2 weeks. It is relatable. Confession time. I've talked about this before as well, but when I first listened to the audiobooks, I realized how much my brain had auto-skipped. Skipped like things like physical descriptions. So I had no idea what anybody looked like when I was reading the books until the audiobooks. But I also skipped the squabbles. It turns out my subconscious mind was like, this isn't important, it's just noise. And so I would just jump over it without paying attention. But with the audiobooks, I couldn't do that. And it made me just hear how exhausting it was. But the show's approach, just adding Matt to this and emphasizing the cabin fever, it makes it feel human, not gendered. So I 100% wrong here. Pre-show, I was like, seafolk, cut them. They're glorified Uber drivers. Me, now, I was wrong. Do I think their role is going to be streamlined? Almost certainly. But if we get the bowl plot, fingers crossed they'll be useful. But until then, vibes. And the sail mistress, I love her. I love her so much. The way she talks to her, you are from the mountains, you are rooted to firm. Like, everything about this interaction, I loved. Especially, obviously, when you know about channeling and how it works. This, she's saying more than obviously she's giving her advice on how to not be seasick, but this has wider implications. And, the way Nynaeve's, I regret every life choice, expression on her face. It's great. It's great. Okay, this Windfinder, my new favorite side character. In the books, it's always the Windfinder, not the sail mistress, who can decide if an Aes Sedai can be on the boat at all, not even just up on deck, because of, they don't want the Aes Sedai to know about what they can do. And here, this Windfinder takes one look at Nynaeve's green face and goes, yeah, screw protocol. You look like death formed over. And again, somebody who battles with vertigo occasionally, I felt this in my soul. Nynaeve, this powerful queen, she's brought low by motion sickness. It's relatable. And this Windfinder risking her neck for compassion. It's beautiful. I want to hug Nynaeve and this Windfinder. You get it? Like, this nausea, this motion sickness, it's not, oh no, it's I will sell my soul for this to stop. Also, just gonna say, this kind of low-key confirms my theory that Siuan sent Min, because I don't think Min would know that Aes Sedai aren't allowed on the deck, because whatever, but Siuan would. As the Amyrlin, she would know that Aes Sedai are not allowed on the deck of the ship, so she could tell Min that as long as, once they get on the ship, they will be locked in their rooms, so as long as you can stay away from them, they won't see you. So, yeah. 2 weeks locked in a room with a seasick Nynaeve and a lecturing Elaine. No wonder, Matt is ready to forgive anyone, even Min, although, granted, he forgave her a couple of episodes ago, but still. This is brilliant character work. We're seeing a lot of ripples still from, the post-Barney Harris thing. But having Matt in this storyline so far, granted, we haven't really gotten to the meat of this part of the story, but he's just adding things to this dynamic that I really enjoy. And for some reason, I really like him and Min together. Reinforcements coming in. Pat and Fane in a Whitecloak uniform coming. Okay. I do think this episode is basically has put the nail in the coffin of my Pat and Fane is Slayer, like he was going to be merged somehow with Lord Luke. I thought that was a theory. I know it would break some of the canon of the books, but they can do that. Like, I know in the books he's Luke in the world and then Slayer in the dream world, but I thought they could do it some way. But I think this, this episode puts that to bed. But Fane as a creepy Whitecloak is still book canon, so that is okay. Meanwhile, Dane here is already deep in his I hate my life era. Book fans already know that he spirals into alcoholism in the Two Rivers, although I don't really remember much of his arc. Like, I don't remember how far in the story he lasts, whatever. But, this is book canon. This moment is like, why are you making me hurt you shtick? It's peak Whitecloak hypocrisy. Like, it's, I'm totally righteous, I'm a good person, unless you're a witch. And this is, of course, the thing that causes him to cross the line, where he was not letting Valda question people. But this moment does. And as I mentioned in my reaction, it is book canon that at least one, maybe more, but at least one of Matt's sisters is a channeler. But we don't find that out until much, much later in the books. Natty Cawthon taking the fall for her daughters. This is show original, but I'm into it, because book Natty, she's barely a character, to be honest. And her kids channeling, like I said, isn't revealed until way later. Here we are taking these elements and then condensing them into a heroic mom moment. Season 1, Natty might not have done this, but I mean, this kind of trauma can change people. This protect my kids at any cost is powerful character growth. Eamon Valda makes my skin crawl exactly as he should. Book readers know this man's atrocities. He's the kind of villain you desperately want to introduce to at least one of the Tricand brothers. But the show's dialed up the Whitecloak competence, making him and them just in general an actual threat, which good and fine, but I want someone to yeet Valda into the sun, please. Okay, quick note, I have brightened up a lot of the scenes here just to show them, just because otherwise I'm just having some sort of blurry gray darkness behind me. I hadn't realized until I was getting the clips for this how much of this episode was dark. It was really, really, really dark. And I know that can be frustrating. I know I noticed it when I was watching it on my computer, but I've talked about this before. I don't generally, like, my monitor is kind of shitty, so I don't generally know how much of a reflection that is of the episode until I see it on my television. And yeah, I noticed it when I was watching it on my television, and then I really noticed it when I was getting clips. I was like, oh my goodness, this episode was dark. And I don't mean like dark things happen, although in this particular story some dark things happen, but it was literally, there was lots of things that you had trouble to see, and I don't really know how to get around that, because this does happen at night. But I really do wish you could see things better on television shows. But yeah, anyway, this scene happens in the books. Fael basically insists on going with Perrin into this rescue, and I thought it was funny with Bane and Chiad seeing her competence with the knives here and then going, and her, like, that made me laugh. I liked it a lot. In the books, Bane and Chiad come here to the Two Rivers because of Fael, and like they just come with Fael. The motivation for Gaul to go makes Gaul is in this story in the books, is basically he owes a blood debt, or he has tow basically to Perrin, and so he goes with Perrin. But Bane and Chiad's motivation is mostly they find the relationship and the argument that is happening at that time between Fael and Perrin interesting, and they're curious about it, so they go. So their motivation for coming here actually makes more sense than it does in the books. But this is kind of, I mean, it's not exactly the way it happens, but yeah, Fael insists on going, and she's good with her knives, and I like it. Alana here is pulling a complete my warder's opinions, or my warder singular's opinions don't matter. It's a 180. Last season, she basically, forced Sheriam to include Ivan and Maxim in Aes Sedai discussions, and now she's straight up ignoring Maxim's protests. This tracks with her book arc. She's got boundary issues galore, but it's just I'm seeing her arc begin here. She tells Maxim that he's not enough, and ouch! Like, he just lost his partner, or one of his partners. He's losing his agency, and then we get this speech from Alana here, where the show is taking something from the books actually and making it more urgent. In the books, the Aes Sedai notice something. You know, they notice that there's maybe something in the water in the two rivers, sort of weirdly strong channelers over there. Maybe we should go take a look. But here in the show, they're making it that the two rivers is it's like an epicenter for destiny, tying Rand, Mat, and the women into Manetherin's legacy. In the books, it's more about, like, latent channelers. Here, it's the last battle's coming, and this place breeds heroes. It's taken that same reasoning from the books, and it's just sort of up to the urgency of it. We've got Lan and Melindra here discussing Manetherin, and yeah, this is new, completely new for the show. Obviously, his friendship with Melindra is new, but even just him discussing what Manetherin was like, that is pretty new for the show. I think, though, it's kind of necessary for this adaptation, because Bookland's emotions they're subtext, mostly. There are times his emotions definitely come out, but they're subtext. But for this medium, we need to externalize his guilt that he feels over Malkier. Like, Melindra's involvement here stings a bit, book readers know, but I feel like externalizing the subtext, the internal subtext of his internal life is kind of necessary. Also, just side note, how old are they supposed to be? Because he was a baby, but she remembers, so she's older than what are we doing? Are we using some sort of one-power Korean skincare routine? I need to know. Of course, Malkier and the Borderlands produced poetry. They produced Landman Dragarin, the best poet in the books. Okay, I had a thought, actually, about this as well. You know Ingtar's story. They actually ended up cutting it. I've heard that they filmed it. They filmed Ingtar's confession and reveal again. Show watchers, you shouldn't be watching this video, but whatever. Ingtar was a dark friend who turned to the dark because he thought it was the only way to save his homeland, and then he has a moment of redemption before he dies. In the show, they just killed him. But they filmed it, but they cut it. And I think they kind of had to, because I don't think we were attached enough to his character for that story to have the emotional weight that it does. But listening to Melindra talk here, I started to think, ooh, I wonder if this is where that story's going to go. Because she's got like this sincerity in her voice. She has longing for Malkier. It feels like a perfect setup for I joined the dark to save my homeland, or maybe to get vengeance, or to do something like that. And yeah, I feel like that could be where this story goes. It feels perfect to me. Also, it would be, kind of genius to repurpose a cut book arc. Like, waste not, want not. So I said in, I believe, episode 1, that one of the struggles that the show, I think, has, just because of the limited amount of episodes we have, is you can't have Rand just jumping from woman to woman to woman. He's going to come across as a player. He's going to come across as unlikable. So they kind of needed to keep him with, especially after what Egwene went through last season. But we also need them to split. And this, I think, feels right and starts to feel like they don't feel like they fit together anymore. We still like them. At least in this moment, we can still like them, but I think that's what we're building to here. Their breakup is going to feel, oh yeah, they've just grown apart. Their paths are no longer in sync. And I didn't get the clip just because it was really awkward to watch, but their kiss. And you watch Severance, and you watch the season finale of season 2 of Severance. There's a kiss in that episode that starts off great and then becomes real awkward real quick. That's what their kiss looked like to me. It was just like, oh no, every other time they've kissed, I've been like, oh, that kiss. Then they had in just after this, the feeling I had was just, that doesn't look right. Moraine and Lan's friendship in the show, I love it. Moraine, I don't think would be this open. She's the queen of communication is for losers. But here, I don't think that would translate well to this medium. She would probably come across as, again, cold and unlikable if this man that she's been bonded with for 20 years and like they feel each other's emotions, that just wouldn't make sense. She's a real person, and so is he, and it's been 20 years. Of course they have real talks. Now, I'm going to now start talking about the actual words she says here. She says, in every future where I lived, Rand dies, and the only way he lives is if I don't. Again, paying attention to her Aes Sedai wordings here. In the books, she sees a possibility of her a probability, I should say, of her death. Not a certainty. But this phrasing implies that she only saw herself dying. So is Moraine actually doomed? Now, there are ways around the dying thing. In the books, we definitely see that with Mat. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, the only other thing I can think is if we do get a Red Door incident, maybe that would sever her connection with life. I don't, in a way that she would think it is death. Like maybe the rings can't see past the door or something. I'm still anticipating it a bit, but we saw a lot of repeated ways that she was killed. Like there was a sword that was just used a fair amount of time. And her wording here, this is different. This is different. In the books, she would not be able to say this sentence. So I am sweating a little bit for Moraine's long-term story. I'm still on the side of her surviving the season, but I'm sweating a bit for her long-term. I just want to take another moment to appreciate their friendship. Romance is great. I love, you know me. You watch my channel, you know how much I love the smooching, but there's just something magical about watching two people who fought side by side for 20 years just vibe. Book Moraine, I don't think would ever be this openly affectionate, but Moraine and Lan, they've earned these moments, these little moments of joy, and my heart is warm. Okay, I gotta give a bit of a book reader confession here. Love these books. Read them so many times. It made me stupid. I completely missed what this looks like. Completely. Because to me, and I'm sure to others who have read the books, it just, you look at that and you go, ooh, Mat's Finn adventure. Yes, I know what that is. But to Mat, and probably show watchers, every time we've seen it, and this is the third time, so we've got this sketch, we've seen it with Min when we saw her viewing, when Mat drank Ishi's creepy tea, we've seen him hang now 3 times. They are probably all like, ooh, that's Mat doing a suicide? And like Mat, until Mat said that, that hadn't even occurred to me that would be a way to interpret what this looks like. And yeah, no wonder he's a little freaked out. Like, and Min's just over here going like, no, don't stand near red doors. And like me, a book reader, is just going, ooh, yes, I know it's coming. And Mat is, mentally drafting his will. Or no, actually he's not, because he doesn't really have faith in her visions. This is kind of a fascinating deviation from the books, actually. In the books, everyone, once they know about Min's visions, or viewings, I should say, they treat them as gospel, except for Siuan, who treats them as something that she can sort of sidestep somehow, but she's wrong about that. But here, Mat's like, you said I'd kill Rand, and I didn't, ignoring the fact that he did dagger stab Rand. Like, she used the wrong words to describe her vision, but he doesn't know that, because he doesn't know what she saw. So, yeah, he actually is thinking that her viewings are not entirely accurate. Interesting. See, folks, channeling looks like the Aurora Borealis, fluid and airing and stunning. It is totally distinct from the Aes Sedai's weaves and the Shan Chan's brutalistic types of weaves, and then the scientific precision of like Latra and Ishi's weaves. It's everything. They move like wind and water. It's so beautiful. Also, incidentally, this answers a huge question that I have been trying to figure out since season 1. Although this then just leaves another question open, but whatever. Elaine and Nynaeve couldn't sense the Windfinder's channeling below deck, but now they can see it. So the rules are proximity plus line of sight equals visible weaves. This still doesn't explain why nobody noticed Moraine's canyon carving earlier, but hey, we'll just pretend it's atmospheric interference. The Sea Folk's channeling style, it's art. The way she moves, her arms sweeping, her body swaying. It's like watching the ocean itself, like bend to her will. The only time we've seen anything like this actually is Moraine. Moraine uses big actions, but this is next level. It makes sense for their culture though, because wind and water are their life. Why wouldn't their magic look like a storm given form? Sea folk channelers, they don't get a lot of page time in the books before becoming annoying, and that's putting it mildly. Here, they're mystical. I love this so much. This book canon, the sea folks send their weakest channelers to the White Tower. Although it's not exactly book canon, because in the books they send channelers who can become Aes Sedai, but they're still very, very weak. They're weak enough that the hope is, and it's what's implied here, is that the Aes Sedai will not be interested in looking for channelers among the sea folk. Of course, the sea folk don't know the Aes Sedai don't recruit. It's a problem. They don't recruit. But yes, the deviation here is like this whole they can never become full sisters. In the books they do. So I guess they are sending people who will come, train a little bit, and then leave. The Sail Mistress here clocking Nynaeve's block. This is fascinating. The implication of this conversation, I don't see any other way to interpret the way this conversation goes, other than to think that the Sail Mistress is also a channeler. In the books, this is different. In the books, Windfinders channel. Sail Mistresses are captains, and anybody who could channel would become a Windfinder. So I guess they're making it a bit more flexible, which actually makes sense with something that she says later on. She's like, there's many ways to be a woman, many ways to be a channeler. There's a little less rigidity here, which, just thinking forward to a certain sea folk ritual, maybe it won't be as rigid, which will make it less creepy. Okay. Sorry, that just made me happy. That thought I had about a certain wedding. Anyway, I think that's what we're getting here. I don't know. I liked this. I liked this interaction. The way she talks about like channeling is like the sea. It came up in on the Dusty Wheel again this morning that this might be part of Nynaeve figuring out how to get past her block. The way it happens in the books, like it's actually on a boat. It happens on a boat that she breaks through her block, but it's sort of something happens that's outside of her control that causes her to finally do the thing that she needs in order to break her block. Whereas here, maybe it could be that this advice that she's getting. So she's gotten good advice from Rima. Maybe she's getting good advice from this Sail Mistress. Maybe this could be things that help her actually break her block through trying, like doing what she needs to do. I loved this little interaction. Like part of it, I continue to really appreciate this Sail Mistress giving her direct advice about how to channel, but just are you one who doesn't like to give up control? And then the way Elaine laughs. Again, I've talked about this in previous breakdowns, but their friendship is one of my favorites. So, and this was just a moment of just like, yeah, have you met her? Yeah, absolutely. The Sail Mistress asks them not to tell. And of course, Elaine is like, yeah, no, I won't. And of course, Nynaeve agrees as well. But, the first promise comes from Elaine, and it just made me laugh because Elaine cannot keep her mouth shut. She has like this inability everywhere she goes to not blurt out her royal status. And it's just, stop telling people you are a valuable target, Elaine. Everywhere she goes, I am Elaine Tricand, daughter of Andor. And it's just like, oh, come on. But she also gives up this secret too in the books. And I don't think she's lying here. I think she means it. But I also think that she's not going to be able to do it. This book thought I had in this moment, I don't remember who's met who at this time in the story, in the books. But I like this moment in the show, I was just like, oh yeah, these people don't know each other. Like, why would Elaine have met Min? There's no reason for her to. And Nynaeve might remember her vaguely as that Faldara bartender, but yeah. Who's met who? I think Elaine and Min, Nynaeve and Min have met in the books. I don't know, remind me. I just want to, call out Nynaeve's Zoe Robbins' excellent seasick, not able to handle a boat acting. That stumble there is great. She's trying so hard to follow the Windfinder's advice, surrender to the ship. But her body's like, no. Got a corpse hanging here. And Matt realizing, he's going from Min's vision must be wrong to, oh, right, other people can hang me too. Cool. Welcome to Tanjiko. Okay, so I got like a little bit of book reader confusion here. These women, Amiko, however they say it in the show, and Joya, in the show, both of them are stilled. But they're not catatonic, they're not depressed, they are still defiant. In the books, stilling breaks you. And like last year when Moraine was shielded, she was less than fully functional. But she is still defiant. Look at this. So either, I don't know, is the Dark One like buffing their willpower, or is the show softening stilling effects? Yeah, and like she's saying, we will not betray our oaths to the Dark Lord. Now, this could be a different thing in the books, because we did hear from Gideon that if you break your oaths, you lose your soul. So there's some sort of magical oath, even for like Jacob Carradine, who would not channel. But in the books, if you are an Aes Sedai, you take your oaths on the oath rod, and then they can't be unbroken or like completely. But once you are stilled, any oaths that you take would be breakable. So I'm just seeing something different here. I'm not complaining about it, except for like I'm a little confused as to why they are still so defiant after having been stilled. Also, just gonna say, another loophole. Stilling in the books, anyway, voids oath rod binds, right? So, and they were Black Ajah just in the first place. Why aren't they just lying? Just lie. Like, you don't have to not tell, just lie. They could do all sorts of chaos by accusing a bunch of people of being Black Ajah. Okay, right before this scene, Elaida here kills Amiko. And I got a lot of comments asking how Elaida could kill Amiko because of the 3 O's. Technically, the 3 O's allow it. At least in the books they do. The 3 O's explicitly allow the Aes Sedai to use the one power as a weapon against dark friends. And Amiko had confessed. This isn't a loophole. It's by design. The O's were created after the Trolloc Wars precisely to let Aes Sedai fight Shadowspawn without hesitation. The exact wording of the 3 O's are, hold on, let me get them up. To speak no word that is not true, to make no weapon with which one man may kill another, and then, of course, the relevant one, never to use the one power as a weapon except against dark friends or Shadowspawn, or in the last extreme defense of her life, or the life of her warder, or another sister. So Elaida's actions here are 100% oath compliant. The real horror isn't that she can do it. It's that she wanted to do it. Elaida's methods here are brutal, but they're not unjustified. These women, Joya, Amiko, they murdered sisters. The key difference, of course, is that Siuan wasn't using the power to interrogate them. I don't know what they were doing, but I'm assuming they weren't torturing them like this. Whereas Elaida, she jumps to magic waterboarding. It's our first real glimpse of the ends, like her ends justify the means philosophy, and it's kind of chilling. That gray man is Jacob Carradine, or Jaya Chim, whatever, whatever's left of him anyway, after Megiddium turned him in episode 1. Book Jayakim has a whole arc, but here he's now a mindless assassin. I don't know. It's a cut. His book plot wasn't load-bearing. I do enjoy, no, that's the wrong word. I was going to say enjoy his story. No, enjoy is the wrong word, but I find his reveal and his ultimate end, I find that satisfying, but it can be removed without really changing the rest of the story, so I kind of get why this change happened. But, okay, of course, this means a change from the books. In the books, I'm pretty sure, tell me again if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it's Slayer who kills these Black Ajah sisters so that they don't reveal any secrets. Or maybe they're killed during the attack in the stone? But are they killed in the Attack of the Stone by Slayer? I don't know. In my brain, I've always associated their death and the deaths of other Aes Sedai with Slayer. Here, it's Greyman, and this, I think, for me, is what like really puts the final nail in the coffin of my Padan Fane as Slayer theory. Although I really kind of hope that the writers at least considered it, while they were drunk, maybe. This framing, I almost didn't include this, but it ended up coming up a little bit on the Dusty Wheel. That overhead shot is very intentional. I don't think we have another overhead shot of this room in this episode. So they've done this on purpose, and I was trying to figure out why. The only thing I can think is that they're vaguely in the shape of a dragon's fang, especially if you include like the stuff that's in the background there. And then later on, we're going to see Whitecloaks also laid out. That's something like vaguely like a dragon's fang. So I don't know, it's just twice in the same episode. I think it has to be significant. Making a TV show must be hard. Because, okay, I had two conflicting things happening in my brain during this moment. The first one was the book brain going, the Aiel should be silent. They're stalking like ghosts, unseen and unheard. But then the TV logic brain was like, well, no, if we don't hear like their footsteps and hear their spears clinking, we'd assume that the sound mixer fell asleep. It's like a struggle between accuracy and audience expectation. But like the rest of it, it's good. They look like they're stalking very, very well. They moving like predators, but with added sounds, so our brains go, yeah, okay, they are real people who exist in the real world. So we haven't gotten a lot of Wolf Brother stuff for Perrin this season yet, except we've got his golden eyes, and then he sniffed when he came out of the Waygate. But we've got these Whitecloak wolf trophies, and they are peak, we're the worst energy. Yeah, like you murdered puppies and then you display them. I mean, they're wolves, but you know what I mean. But I noticed on the soundtrack here in the music, there are something that sounds like it hints at wolf's howls. And it's like it's Perrin's soul growling, I will end you all. Of course, he doesn't do that, but, yeah. This is, we're basically getting a bit of his wolfy story here. I don't know if we're going to get more. We see a little bit later on in this episode, but this is a hint to it. Meet Child Buyer, Valda's runner-up in the most irredeemable Whitecloak contest. This man is a sociopath, and with Dane maybe dying this episode, I don't know, did he? To be quite honest, I wasn't as invested in this storyline as I was in the others, so I don't know. But whatever. The Whitecloaks are running out of semi-decent people. This also bothered me. You've got Bane and Chiad coming inside, Fael comes inside, Perrin comes inside. Why is nobody outside the tent? Why is nobody playing lookout? That's Rescue 101. Sure, it goes fine, but my anxiety was just like, what? The Whitecloaks have one job. I mean, they're bad at it, but they've got that one job, okay? It's just, why is nobody playing lookout? Honestly, okay, I just said it, but this whole rescue, this was the weakest part of the episode to me. It felt underwhelming. I didn't feel tension. I didn't really feel payoff. I wanted to be on the edge of my seat, cheering Perrin as he steps into his role as leader, but things felt clunky. The Whitecloaks go down a bit too easily, and Perrin's strategic brilliance was barely a whisper. Natty's sacrifice, which we'll get to later, was, that was hard. That hit me a bit. But, and show Natty goes from season 1's worst mom to burning at the stake for her kids. It's a condensed redemption arc. I do think it might be there to replace Perrin's book strategy, R.I.P. Perrin's entire family in the books. But honestly, it felt a little bit flat for me. It lacked the emotional punch I think it should have had. I wanted to be celebrating Perrin's victory, but instead, I just really wanted to get to the other parts of the episode. Talked about this before, but deviation from the books, because in the books, the Whitecloaks, kind of useless. Here, they're actually hitting Aes Sedai with arrows. They are not threatening in the book, but they are dangerous here, and it makes, this moment quite intense. And I have to say, props to the show for making us care about Alanna before the controversial, shall we say, choice that she is going to make later on, if they go that way, which I think they are. I see how they're steering this. In the book, she's just oh, that green sister, until bam, betrayal. Here, they're making us like her, and it's going to hurt. Fael, judo, or I don't know what that is, but it was really cool. I love this. I wanted to see this. Like I said, this was an underwhelming story for me, but I liked seeing her competence. And it's the flip, the way she uses his momentum to get him down. And there, I guess it's his shoulder. I don't know. I don't know if he dies. But yeah, for half a second, I thought they were actually going to kill Alanna here. And I panicked. Not because I love show Alanna, but not, in the books, whatever, book fans know. But I panicked because her arc is clearly building to that moment from book 6. And if they cut it short, it would be weird, right? But then Maxim comes in and with his last minute save, and it's perfect. And then this is the shot that I'm talking about, another overhead shot that is inserted here with a vaguely dragon's fangy shape. And it's reminding me of that shot from episode 1 of the very first season with the sheep in a dragon's fang. We get one of these like sort of disorienting jump cuts here, where she's like here and then here. It's perfect dream logic. It reminded me of last season with Ishii and Min. There was like a lot of jump cuts in when they had their conversation. But even that reminded me of how Robert Jordan wrote dreams in the books. The way reality shifts, the way you redo moments is exactly how my dreams feel. And it's one of the ways in which this adaptation is nailing the texture of the source material. Like, Jordan's dream sequences weren't just plot delivery, although they definitely did that. They felt like dreams, and this, like, moments like this, for me, it gets it. This was the conversation I was hoping for. I was really hoping for, and I wish we'd gotten more of it, to be honest. In the show, Rand at least seems to still have feelings for Lanfear. Unlike Book Rand, who at this point in the story is fully like, nope, evil, bye, by now. But, I mean, Natasha O'Keefe is giving a tour de force performance here, and I just really wanted to see how they interacted after Rand saw her as Mirren. And the way that, like, that Lanfear here talks about Mirren, she dismisses her. I'm not that woman anymore. That's what you liked. She was docile. And Rand's like, no, I still see her in you. And I saw her in Celine. And he's right. Mirren wasn't docile. That's not how I read her at all. I definitely saw softness in her, but she wasn't docile. She was a scientist chasing equality through the one power. But Lanfear here rewrites her own past to justify her present, and it's tragic. And Rand, I think he's still seeing the woman she could have been, not the monster that she is. So, book brain adjustment here. In the books, only dreamwalkers can enter other people's dreams, and Moraine definitely isn't a dreamwalker, so she couldn't, and Egwene wouldn't be able to take her with her as she could anyway, like, especially not without a Tel'aran'rhiod. Maybe if she had a dream ring or something, but no. So the show is streamlining this. Dreamwalkers apparently can take passengers, and that's fine. It's a smart change for pacing because we need things to go. Also, just noting the power shift here. Moraine is needing Egwene, and you got Egwene warning Moraine about the dangers in dreams, which Moraine even calls out as like, no, I did that to you once. It's interesting to see. Like, I don't think Moraine or Egwene ever gets to this point where she is like, at this, like, Moraine comes to her for help. There is a point where they start talking as equals, but you don't really get like them going from Moraine, Egwene down here to Egwene above. That doesn't happen in the books because a certain thing, it would have happened, but then something happened that made it not happen. So yeah. Also, just gonna say, in the books, the ability to find other people's dreams is sort of like a higher level skill that Egwene wouldn't have by this point in the books. Like, I think that doesn't come until book 5. But I don't think the show is going to do the whole bodiless Egwene floating through a sea of pinpricks of light or whatever that we get in the books where she's trying to find people's dreams. But so that's an adjustment. We're just bringing that skill early. Again, perfectly fine with that because, again, we need to streamline things. We need the story to go. Another change from the books, and one, again, that I am fine with because I don't know how they could have done this in the show otherwise. Because basically in the books, if you enter someone else's dream, and especially if they're not a dreamwalker, they usually have no clue that you're there. Like, they just think that you would be part of the scenery or that you would become a character in their dream. That's what they would think. So in order to make them remember you when they wake up, you have to sort of pull some tricks. But the way, Moraine's about to drop a complicated message on Siuan, this wouldn't work in the books unless Siuan was a dreamwalker herself. Now, the show actually has kind of laid some groundwork for that, which is kind of cool because, it even has some book basis. Siuan was talking about dreams in season 1, and in the books she messes with the dream ring a lot, and at one point she does something that even impresses the wise ones. But anyway, in the books, if the wise ones want to send a message to someone who isn't a dreamwalker to make it stick, they would haunt like multiple people's dreams and then hope in the morning those people, gossiped about it and were like, hey, did you dream about a tiny Moraine yelling about Rand or whatever? And that's how that would work. But basically, more importantly, the Wheel of Time plot runs on miscommunication. If these people just talked to each other, we'd have 5 fewer books. The streamlined version is necessary because the show just doesn't have the time. So while this is kind of a significant change to the metaphysics of the world of dreams in the books, I don't think it really matters, and B, I don't think it would be possible to tell this story if we kept things as complicated, because we would need to have so many steps in order to be able to get people to be able to get the information that they need. Okay, so here we get the message that she's sending. She says, I have 2 things that I know are true, and she delivers her first truth like a decree. The White Tower must bend the knee to Randolph Thor. And then silence. That unsaid second truth hangs between them like a sword. Is it I have to die? Is it I'll never see the last battle? Or is it I love you? The genius here is in what's withheld. Book Moraine would never voice this vulnerability, but show Moraine. She lets Swan see the words that are stuck in her throat because some truths are a little bit too heavy to speak out loud. Last season, I was very much on the they didn't break up scene, and I defended Swan's I command you move because, I mean, let's revisit that scene through her eyes. Moraine suddenly channeling, post quote-unquote stilling, fleeing with the dragon and offering 0 explanation. Of course, her mind, like, there's nowhere else for her mind to go except, my girlfriend's a dark friend? Like, the Oath-Rod test in the time that they had, because Moraine, like, everybody was rushing. I don't know how else she could have been sure. And Moraine here admits, I'd have done the same or worse. And we've seen some of the worst that Moraine would do. We saw what she was willing to do in episode 1 of this season. This isn't just forgiveness, it's recognition, it's respect. It's 2 women who have spent 20 years making brutal calls. 2 women looking at each other and saying, we're the same kind of terrible. We burn the world and each other for the greater good. It's peak Blue Ajah romance. I just found this a really interesting insight into Swan's character. You wouldn't lose yourself to the seat, she says. The Amaryllis seat didn't change Swan. It consumed her. Not because she's weak, but because she tried to balance, the job, playing politics, managing the tower's egos and all of the egos of all the rulers that she has to deal with. And then her ultimate mission, preparing the world and the tower for Rand. And in the books, this split focus, I think, is part of what destroys her. And here, it's that wistful, you'd have done better. It's Swan admitting, I failed the moment I started caring about the job. This beat here, for me, is the one misstep in this. They've just affirmed their mutual understanding. So this, why the soap opera we're broken drama, it feels like the show thought that we needed some artificial angst before the payoff, and yet I still wept. Maybe because Moraine, like Rosamund Pike here, sells Moraine's I'm pushing you away for your own good face, like Rosamund Pike would. But I don't know. Imagine if instead Moraine had just hesitated, and Swan had charged through her doubts with that every life vow. I feel like that would have been smoother, deeper. This felt like a hiccup to me. But then this, I'll find you, I'll wait for you in every life. That callback to season 1's In This Life or in the Next Promise, it's, the truth is I cried, and I'm kind of almost crying again, because buried in that clunky setup is the most Wheel of Time romance. These 2 women who love the world more than they love each other, but they will chase each other's souls through every turning of the wheel. And then Swan's theme, like Elaida coming in and rising like a tidal wave. It was emotional warfare. Like, seriously, that is the heart of the show, that romance, in my opinion. But okay, the episode ends with Egwene basically doing a dream world. Sorry, the kiss is out again. Sorry, a dream world roll call, checking in on all of her friends, which I gotta say, it was a very cool way to tie up the episode and show that they're all connected, even though they are far apart. But also, just gonna say, kind of creepy, like Egwene, honey. Boundaries much? Ugh, you're literally spying on their subconscious. But, okay, putting aside the ethics of dream lurking, let's take a look at their dream. This isn't just any dream. That's Elnor, the daughter Nynaeve almost had. If you missed it, last season, during Nynaeve's accepted test, the third arch showed her an entire life where she was married to Lan and raised a daughter, Elnor, in the Two Rivers. And here, she is dreaming of teaching her to listen to the wind like a proper wisdom. She's still dreaming of that life, that little girl, that version of herself that got to be happy and ordinary and safe. She's even wearing the clothes, I think, from that arch. This is devastating because Nynaeve knows that this wasn't real, but her heart hasn't let go. She's the woman who saves or tries to save everyone, but she couldn't save her. And Egwene's just watching. Does Egwene actually even realize what she's watching? Because, like, did Nynaeve ever tell her about this? Does she know? This is Nynaeve's greatest grief. It's not just a lost love, but a lost future. Book Nynaeve buries her pain under anger and braid tugging, but the show's giving us something a bit rawer. That's a hard word to say. It came out like roar. But this is the cost of being a hero. The dreams you have to sacrifice, the lives you never live, and it hurts. This one, it's just beautiful. Like, this feels like, I mean, in the books, Elaine, I believe, it is Elaine, yes. Elaine learns to channel, like, how to control weather from the wave dance. I think this boat is actually called the Wave Dancer. I meant to say Windfinder, and it came out Wave Dancer. I think in the books, the boat that they go on is called the Wave Dancer, which makes the dancing Windfinder. Oh, I love that, because she's literally, like, dancing on the waves, like the Wave Dancer. Anyway, she learns to channel and to do weather weaves, basically, from the Windfinders. So, like, this is her expressing that desire. Also, I believe in the books, she, in one of her dreams, is dressed in sea folk attire, which, again, thank you, show, because there's a bit of a titillation factor to the sea folk in the books, because they are topless on the boats, which would be fine, except again, it comes across as like, ooh, they're so exotic because they're foreign and dark and they let their boobies out. And then there's a scene where she's in the dream world trying on to see what it's like to not have a shirt. But here we're seeing that, but just also no titillation. And it's just beautiful. And of course, she's dreaming of Avienda, and yeah. This is the moment that did break me, like, completely. Natty is dead, burned at the stake for her kids. And when it happened when it was actually happening in the episode, I was like, oh, that's sad. Poor Natty. This moment, because Matt is blissfully unaware during this, and he's dreaming of the conversation that he needs to have with her, and it can't ever happen. And I'm way more invested in Matt than I am in the storyline that Natty was actually in. And this one, it felt like a punch to the face. Also, just gonna say, that dagger that he's holding, it's quite long. It's not the ruby dagger, but even in the music, there's something ominous that comes when he looks at it, and it is curved in a way that looks weird. I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, obviously it's his dream, right? So there's all sorts of things that can be happening there, but it's just interesting that he's showing that to them. Perrin is getting more wolf brother crumbs here. Hopper's presence confirms. I don't know. Hopper's here. Does this confirm that it's the wolf dream, which is basically Tel'aran'rhiod for furries or furry nerds, I guess? If it is Tel'aran'rhiod if Hopper is here and it's him in the wolf dream, then book logic says that he should be aware of Egwene, because he would be in the dream world the same as her. Like, that's the same. Basically, they get their education in the dream world in two different ways, but they are learning how to do the same thing. I'm going to say maybe not. Maybe it's just a dream because she was dream hopping. So it'd be weird if she was dream hopping and then would suddenly go into Tel'aran'rhiod. So yeah, I don't know. I'm being way too specific with it. I don't think that's necessary. Maybe the show might not be. But more importantly, he's already dreaming of Aiel because somebody's a little smitten. And the axe that he's forging here is a half-moon blade. You can see it there. I'm hoping he gets one this season. I completely called this. This was not just Lanfear being dramatic. I called her kissing Rand while looking over his shoulder. I actually thought that she was going to be looking at Egwene. It's an attack. She's marking Rand like mine. She's tormenting Egwene like I'm in his dreams. You're not. And she's daring Egwene to react. Now, Egwene knows Rand's been making out with a Forsaken in his dream. She doesn't necessarily know who she is, but she knows that's a Forsaken. And that Forsaken has noticed her. So in the next episode, Rand's funny story speech that's going to be legendary. So my final thoughts on this episode. I liked episode 4 more, right? But that's not really this episode's fault because following that episode, it was kind of impossible. It was just episode 4 was a masterpiece, but this one was also very, very good. I'm just trying to figure out if some of my feelings, especially about Perrin's storyline, are because it wasn't as epic as last episode, or if it was legit like a shortcoming of this episode. The Whitecloak rescue, as I said, was a little underwhelming. The Whitecloak camp, it should have felt more ominous, more threatening. Natty's death was sad, but I wasn't really sad about it until Matt. And that was like a different storyline, so I don't know. But yeah, those are my thoughts, and that's it. That's my deep dive into this week's episode. What did you all think? What were the changes you loved, changes you hated, moments that made you scream at the screen? Let me know in the comments below. And before I go, as always, a huge thanks to my patrons. Your support is what makes these videos possible. So if you want to join my Patreon, there is a link in the description below. And thank you again. And with that, I am going to end this here. So please like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.